I don't think I've ever heard such a scathing review for a big budget film.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
We're a few days away from Avatar: Way of the Water, and the reviews are starting to pour in. The honest reviews, the real reviews, not the ones that people go to the pre-screenings like 4 months in advance and say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, Jesus himself endorses the movie. No. We're talking about the real reviews. And damn it, whew, are they mean. Now, folks, we have never let our opinions on Avatar be unknown here on the channel. If you want to hear us talk about James Cameron, listen to our podcast, Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. here on the channel. But we've been talking about Avatar, the countdown, the build-up for, well, it's been 13 years since Avatar last dropped, and we always say that Avatar left no cultural footprint. It really wasn't that big of a deal. The only reason it's relevant is because it made a lot of money. And it looks like Avatar 2 is falling into that category quite organically, shall we say. And the movie sounds Avatarded. Now, some places are giving this film an 8 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, but today we're going to talk about a review that gave Avatar out of 5 a half star. So that's a 1 out of 10. They really don't like it. 13 years has gone by since James Cameron delivered his new science fiction epic Avatar to theaters that created a short-lived fad for audiences when they went to theaters. Despite Avatar's rote storylines, ridiculous dialogue, and eerily similar plot to other films, Avatar went on to become the highest-grossing movie of all time until Avengers Endgame entered the chat. Now, more than a decade later, Cameron brings his sequel Avatar: The Way of Water into cinemas in the hopes of recreating a box office gross that he succeeded in before with those same technical tidbits that upped the price of tickets. It's not clear when Cameron deviated from his path of amazing films such as Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, and True Lies. Still, somewhere down the road, Cameron inherited that George Lucas trait of making characters and stories in films only to sell merchandise. It's clearly evident that with this sequel there are so many characters and animals that are on screen for no reason other than to sell a toy and make a quick buck. After 13 years, one would assume that Cameron took the time to really flesh out a new story with marvelous and magical landscapes, with deep characters. But the sad fact is that this didn't happen at all. Avatar: The Way of Water feels like it was written 12 hours before a school deadline by a third grader who is struggling to pass English. Cameron and his writers, Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, have conjured up a script that's full of nonsense and characters that don't have anything to do but show up, wave at the camera for a cameo, and then leave to never be seen again. It's unbelievable how anyone allowed this to be made and make the final cut. People say never bet against James Cameron. Well, bet against this because this brings nothing new to the table, with the exception of being a long, drawn-out mission statement of saving the whales. That's not a joke either. Audiences would get more out of Free Willy and Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home as double features than anything Avatar: Way of the Water brings to the table. Cameron would steal those famous shots from both movies and incorporate them in such a cheesy way that this sequel really jumps the shark, literally, time and time again. Cameron has set up life on Pandora with Jake Sully and wife Neytiri, who are living a peaceful existence with their several kids. After the events of the first film, Sully and the Na'vi are simply enjoying being a family and watching their kids grow up, as the first segment of the sequel shows over the course of a few years. Now, there are two different kinds associated with Sully and Neytiri and their family. One is a human kid named Spider, who is essentially a copy of Mowgli from the Jungle Book, who runs around in a loincloth living amongst the Na'vi. Then there is Kiri, the spawn of Dr. Grace, Sigourney Weaver, the second action star, that somehow goes unmentioned on how it is possible, but has magical, mystical powers that comes across as a kid's film about a teenage witch, who all get along with their other native Na'vi offspring. So at the end of the first film, Sully and the Na'vi defeat the human and send them back to their dying Earth. Meanwhile, the new Earth ship lands on Pandora with the Na'vi-human hybrids who might be really familiar to those who watched the first film. That's right, the mean, evil Colonel is back as a Na'vi, and his only motivation is hardcore revenge against Jake Sully. That's it. The precious and laughable element obtanium is nowhere to be found in the sequel because the mission to destroy all the native life on the planet is solely a revenge against one Marine. None of this makes sense. If Cameron didn't learn his lessons from the unobtainium parody last time, he of course adds a different element this time, in one form of an ooze from a whale's body that could be worth millions. Again, it's downright awful, silly, and makes no sense whatsoever when the film takes everyone on this journey when one of the Sully's kids finds and befriends a whale on Pandora. There are alleged twists and turns that for sure were supposed to make a big imprint in the film, but they're executed so haphazardly and without reason that every single moment or action makes no sense and nothing is returned for a conclusion. Characters show up and decisions are made that only exist for a sequence and never turn up for the rest of the film. Maybe in a future installment these storylines will crop up, but for this film, there's nothing of the sort. But that's poor filmmaking 101. Performances are bland and dry, and it feels like watching acting from the Star Wars prequels sans Hayden Christensen. It's that bad. There are a couple of recognizable cameos here, but Cameron never uses them to their full potential and makes the stupidest decisions with them up and down the board, including accents and dialect. Cameron is bringing Avatar: The Way of Water back to 3D, and it was everyone's hope that the 3D fad was gone. But here it is to rear its ugly head again, and look, it's the exact same as it did 13 years ago. Bad. It offers no new depth or entertainment value to the film or story. Jackass 3D still has the better 3D element to it. The movie would have played the same if it was in the same standard IMAX theater. Now the high frame rate that everyone was introduced to in the first Hobbit is on display here as well. While it looks like the image went through a digital car wash with its clarity, there's no real way to see the frame rate, other than on the human skin, since everything is digitally captured. Any filmic element is lost in this movie, and it seems like everyone is watching a live primetime stage musical. Sure, there are pretty colors to look at, but in no way does it make the movie good. Even the Dolby Atmos sound design was less than desired, as every explosion was too soft or low-key. Avatar: Way of the Water is one of the worst movies to be released this year and is perhaps the worst movie of all time with a budget this big. If this is the way Cameron is going about with his next 3 sequels, he should hang up his director's coat and take on something else. This is bad filmmaking at its finest, which resulted in one of the most terrible movies of the holiday season. Ever. An apology should be made for its runtime for a movie that goes nowhere and does the exact same thing that its predecessor does. Half star, skip this film. I love to read shit like this because James Cameron's ego is unstoppable, but it looks like this film won't be unstoppable. Oh my god. I didn't even read you the full review. There's shit about flaming flamingos and dinosaurs and shit. What is this movie? I know what it is. It's James Cameron's ego. It's James Cameron pleasuring himself all over the screen and leaving big streaks. Those streaks make no sense. It seems like Avatar 2: Way of the Water makes no sense. Now, this review from the High Def Digest isn't the only scathing review of Avatar 2. The Guardian gives the film a 2 out of 5, stating, "A soggy twee, $3 million screensaver. Drenching us with disappointment that can be hardly admitted out loud, James Cameron's soggy new digitized film has a beached-like massive, pointless whale. The story, which might fill a 30-minute cartoon, is stretched as if by some AI program into a 3-hour movie of epic tweeness." By the way, for those who don't know, the quality of being twee equals artificially attractive or too perfect, as in, it's too well preserved. Well, too bad James Cameron didn't preserve the story above all else, because a 30-minute story stretched to 3 hours sounds exciting, said no one ever. Kids aren't going to like Avatar because most of them weren't alive when Avatar came out. Look, if you were born when Avatar came out, you're not really that little of a kid. You're in middle school. If you were like me in college, well, you probably could have a family at this point. So it's been so long since Avatar came out that no one gave a shit about the story. Well, let's be honest, the first Avatar has very little in story. So if this film is getting critiqued and raked over the coals because the story is terrible and the effects don't save it, this one must be lighter than we could possibly imagine. You know, a gust of wind just went by, so soft you barely would even notice it, but there went the whole plot to Avatar 2. It's just nothingness. I gotta say, personally, I enjoy this because James Cameron's ego has been off the charts. Over the last couple of days, he's been saying things like people will pay double to see Avatar if they have to go to the bathroom. It's that good. Well, Jim, I don't think enough people are gonna pay to see it the first time. Folks, if you want to watch 3 hours of CGI, go watch a Marvel movie. If you want to watch 10 hours of CGI, go watch literally anything else. Final point, James Cameron, you took too long to make a movie that people didn't like, but liked the technical aspect. And now the rest of the world, in terms of filmmaking, can copy you, can better you. What is Avatar 2 going to have that Avengers Endgame didn't? 3D? Both had it. CGI? Both had it. A story? I guess Endgame gets the nod there because Avatar really doesn't have a story. And it's the same thing with other big films too. A DC movie can do what Avatar did. With enough money, anybody can really make an Avatar-level film, and movies like Love and Monsters have effects that are just as good, if not better. Yeah, it came a little later, but Love and Monsters won an Oscar. Other films win Oscars for their effects. Avatar: Way of the Water. Well, I hope that Golden Globe nomination for Best Director makes you feel good, Jim Cameron, because a lot of us are going to skip this piece of shit. It's the holiday season, times are tough for some, and I doubt your average person's going to want to spend $20 to go see a 3-hour film that has no story. Again, folks, just go to YouTube. You can watch 8K videos of high definition stuff. This is all getting us to the future of Fahrenheit 451, where everyone hangs out and watches the picture screens on their wall. We're there. Now, I'm a big advocate of going to the movies. We want to save cinemas all the time, but Avatar, watch that shit at home, folks. Oh, the spectacle. is it really worth $60 to take you and another person out for the spectacle of Avatar? I don't think so. These people say no. Well, it's your money. You do what you want with it. But I'm going to be laughing this whole holiday season at James Cameron's ego. Thanks, Jim. Now, make a decent movie. It's been 84 years. Closer to 30. T2 for life. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more. A lot more from World Class Bullshitters. And there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.